Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the day 2 of International Youth Conference, Envisioning India's Future of Youth 2025. I start this wonderful session with the thought of Warren Bennis. The primary goal of management education was, as originally conceived, to impart knowledge that could be applied to a variety of real-world business situations. The special warm welcome to everyone for this International Plenary Session 2. The title of the session is Management Education as a Critical Influencer. Management education is not the piling on of learning, information, data, facts, skills, or ability. That's training or instruction, but is rather making visible what is hidden as a seed. No further delay, I'm very happy to welcome our session chair, Dr. Ashish Chandra, Professor of Healthcare Administration, College of Business, University of Houston, Clear Lake at Texas Medical Center, USA. He served as a faculty chair of program for 10 years. Previously, he taught at Marshall University in West Virginia and Xavier University in New Orleans, Louisiana. He was also a healthcare and management consultant. He published in Hospital Topics, Journal of Medical Marketing, Clinical Research, and Regulatory Affairs, Journal of Healthcare Management, among others. He has served as Vice President of MBAA International, President of the Association of Collegiate Marketing Educators, and on the Board of Directors of both the Federation of Business Disciplines and the Marketing Management Association. I would request our Director, Dr. Prabhat Pankaj, to honor our guest, Dr. Ashish Chandra, with a green certificate. Welcome, sir.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be there.
Let me introduce our panelists, Dr. Krista Finstad-Milion, Director of the Human Resources and Organizational Behavior, Department of ICN Business School, Paris, France. In December 2020, she was elected Regional Chapter Chair for France, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg for the United Nations Principles of Responsible Management Education. Congrats, ma'am. 10 years ago, she co-created the Design Thinking for Sustainable Change Autumn Workshop at ICN with a team of international professors and company practitioners of different disciplines deeply committed to sustainable development. I would request Dr. Shubha to honor a guest, Dr. Krista Finstad-Milion, with a green certificate. Welcome, Dr. Krista.
We welcome you, Dr. Krista, and a tree will be planted in Sundarban area, in the wildlife areas of India. And you can track the growth of tree with the certificate number issued in the green certificate. So hearty welcome to you.
I'm very honored. Thank you very much.
Let me introduce Mr. Ravi C. Kyasaram, Director, Growth and Technology, Edward Jones, USA. He is BE in Industrial Engineering, MBA, Harvard Business School. He has 6 years of cross-functional and multi-industrial experience, leader in general management, encompassing growth strategy, corporate planning, marketing, demand generation, and project leadership. Specialization in developing and achieving a growth vision for a corporation with experience in pursuing both organic growth programs and inorganic planning, valuation, and integration. Work cross-functionally with senior leadership, business teams to position the company for a growth mindset and to holistically solve business challenges. Energetic, results-oriented communicator with a drive to create and implement business solutions. Passionate about customers and the linkage of growth strategy. Welcome, Mr. Ravi Kyasaram. I would like to request Dr. Prabhat, our director, to honor our chief guest, Mr. Kavi Kyasaram, with the green certificate.
Welcome, Ravi ji.
Thank you, Prabhat ji, and such an honor to be a part of this star-studded panel. I'm sure you've made a mistake by inviting me, but nevertheless, I'm here and excited to spend the next 90 minutes with everyone. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me introduce Ms. Amy Memon, Regional Head South Asia, Manager Accreditation Services, Asia Pacific for AACSB. She has over a decade of experience working with the AACSB's member schools and served as the association's special advisor in India prior to her relocation to Mumbai, India in 2010. She was a manager of research at AACSB US headquarters, where she contributed to research reports, including the globalization of business schools and impact of research, a guide for business schools. She also represented AACSB at the UN Global Compact to co-convene the principles for responsible management education. She began her career at AACSB, developing and executing conferences and seminars across 5 continents. I would request Dr. Usha to honor our guest, Ms. Memon, with the green certificate.
Welcome, ma'am. Hearty welcome to you. A tree has been planted under your name. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. It's an honor. Glad to be here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Let me introduce Ms. Prashasti Rastogi, Regional Director, Coursera for Campus India. She is helping campuses expand skill-based learning and help employers discover best talent. Her leadership style is nurturing. She is hyper-focused on delivering incredible customer experience on products in learning, content, and communications for 14 years across APAC, EMEA, and US. She is data-obsessed, leveraging technology to shorten the decision-making runway and deliver ROIs. She demonstrated commitment to objectives and business optimization through resource management, strategic partnerships, pipeline development, and internal-external stakeholders management. I would request Dr. Shubha to honor our guest, Ms. Prashasti, with a green certificate.
We welcome you, ma'am, and by
much.
planting a tree under your name. So you're most welcome.
Thank you very much. This is a beautiful gesture, and I'm so happy that there's a green footprint to my contribution today. Thank you very much, Dr. Pankaj and team, for doing this.
Welcome, Ms. Prashasti. Let me introduce Ms. Kristina Bouree, CEO, Netherlands Education Group, Netherlands. She is a founder and director of Stichting Libertas International, the Netherlands Education Group, an MBA graduate and entrepreneur with a passion for business development and international cooperation, which brings innovation and efficiency. I would request welcome Dr. Usha to honor our guest, Ms. Kristina Bouree, with a green certificate.
Welcome, ma'am. Hearty welcome. A tree has been planted under your name and it can be tracked by the ID which is given at the bottom. Welcome, ma'am.
Welcome, Ms. Kristina. Now, I handed over to this one to Dr. Ashish Chandra. Sir, this is yours. Please.
Thank you very much for again inviting me over there, and absolutely fantastic introduction of all the panelists over here. And I was just calculating how much time we have over here. Approximately 10 to 12 minutes each of the panelists will speak. Then if there are any question and answers, that can be typed in the chat box. And I believe Dr. Jayanti, if you can control the chat box for the Q&A, that would be fantastic.
Sure, sir.
So let's talk a little bit about management education, and I'll start out by giving some of my perspective before I'll pass it on to Dr. Krista. And everybody has been looking at the pandemic as being the worst thing that has happened to all of us. And if anybody says it has not, they're lying. Yes, it has been one of the worst things that has happened to us. But we should also look at it that from a more, let's say, positive perspective. Yes, it happened, but we survived. People who were expecting management education to just come and go away, it's like a fad. Management education did provide the skills to most of the industries to come up with the strategies in a manner to survive. So the value of management education is there. I understand the value of other fields as well, but the management education does train individuals with certain skills. It changes your mindset. It makes you focused on how you can do it. Now, you have to figure out whether you want to be a manager or a leader, and that's a whole new lecture we can do on that thing for days. But management education is what we need to look at, that where are we going to go forward? As Dr. Pankaj earlier said, that the government of Rajasthan has already started to ease up the restrictions and more gatherings are happening over there. It was not a decision that they made lightly. It was a decision which was made after lots of calculations and after a lot of consultation with management executives. They have to figure out whether survivability of the economy is important or not. And in current day, yes, it is. If you don't pay attention to the economy, that can become an issue in a long term. So when you're talking about management education, you look at short term and the long term. The 2 years that we have gone through, the tough 2 years that we have gone through, basically you have to think about it as being short term. So here's some interesting facts. 2 years ago, the first time I heard about anything like a virus breaking through in China, and China has put the lockdown, I was in a flight to come for the exact same conference to Jaipuria. And I read that in the newspaper when my flight from Paris to Bangalore. 2 years ago, I read that thing, that was my last international trip. Because after that, everything got, well, no, actually, I went recently. And I brought back a souvenir with me called COVID. So my international trips have not been the most fun right now. One trip and I came back with a souvenir. But when students are thinking about management education, don't think about money. Money should never be the most important thing. A lot of people, if they talk about management education, all they see is that they want to be a CEO. I can see in the audience, in the live shots from the auditorium, there are about 80 to 100 students over there sitting. And if I ask them who wants to become a CEO, majority of them will say, yeah, I want to be a CEO. The reality is that not all of you will become a CEO, but it does not mean that you should not try for it. Who will become a CEO? That I cannot tell. But we give you the education. Management education gives you the foundation. Rest is up to the students, how they are going to manage it. And if they think that if we are just going to be there as a manager and delegate it to somebody else, don't do that. Management education teaches you the skills, but it does not teach you that you can delegate something that you are not willing to do. You should always do something, or if you're delegating something to somebody else, you better be willing to do it yourself. And I always ask that question since I teach in the healthcare administration field, I teach healthcare marketing primarily and healthcare marketing and healthcare management. And I ask the same thing, who wants to be a CEO? And if anybody tells me, and I give them different scenarios that, okay, if a patient or a patient's loved one asks you for a direction, what would you tell them? Would you just tell them that, oh yeah, go to the front desk and find the direction? Or would you help them find that particular office? And if the person says that I don't mind just guiding them to that office, that's a good sign. You are there for a reason. Giving directions is easy, but doing it yourself is hard. So if you're giving that hard a task to somebody else, you should be willing to do it. There's another thing I've heard from a lot of the younger generation also, and I have the same issue here. So I'm in Houston right now. It is 10:45 in the night it's Thursday night, not Friday morning even. It's Thursday night, 10:45 in the night right now in Houston. And if I ask a lot of the students that, okay, let's have a session at 10 o'clock in the night, first thing they'll say, that's too late. I don't want that to interfere with me and my sleep cycle and all that thing. They have to prioritize what is more important. You need students, this is very important for you to remember. Everybody on this panel is from a different part of the world, and we are all here for you. I know some of the panelists joining from Moscow. Moscow is maybe a little bit more, let's say, convenient time zone right now. I don't know about that, but I know Kristina is joining from Netherlands. It's probably early in the morning over there, but we are here for you because we feel passionately about management education, and we feel passionately about our students. It doesn't matter what part of the world you are in. If we are a faculty member, you are a student, and we have that strong relationship. So we are here for you, but you have to decide whether you want to be for this educational session or not. It's up to you. What you gain out of it, it's all up to you. And that's what a management education will do. It will just give you some perspectives. It's up to you what you do with those perspectives. Things will go wrong. I will tell you right now that do not expect everything to go according to plan. Plans, they fail all the time. But it does not mean you should stop planning. So always have a plan and a backup plan. And that should help you in your future careers. Okay, and things fail, improvise. We are doing the Zoom calls right now. If the system fails, we improvise. We always do. So don't just quit and say, okay, I'm done. I can't do anything. Try to figure out a solution. So those are some of my words of wisdom, if you want to call it. But I would like the other panelists to chime in over here, and I will pass it on to Krista and just keep it around 10 to 12 minutes, everybody around that. So if that's okay with Mary, is that good?
Yes, sir. That's
All
perfect.
right. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Now, if I can just share my screen. Okay. How is that? Can everyone see?
Yeah, we are able to see. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, really pleased to be here with you. I guess I'm the one from Moscow, but just on holidays, I work at ICN Business School, and I have the pleasure of sharing an action learning experience with you today from our school and reflections on the subject of management education as a critical influencer. The title of our paper, and there are four of us from ICN Business School, is Empowering Students as Agents of Sustainable Change, Global Vision for Local Action. Now, if that sounds perhaps rather abstract at this point, I hope by the end of the 10 minutes, you'll be able to have a better idea, kind of hands-on idea of what actually we have done in this direction. So to begin, here's our agenda. We'll start with an introduction, and we'll do a brief overview of what PRIME is, PRIME Principles of Responsible Management Education, and what is the link with sustainability. Next, we'll pass on to a look at the methodology that we use in this paper, which is design thinking. Some of you perhaps are familiar with this. And this time it's for sustainable innovation. And we consider this an interesting approach because it's very human-centered. And amidst everything we're living through, and looking back at what we just talked about, the pandemic, it seems to be more and more important and vital today to have human-centered approaches to innovation. We'll be looking at sustainability innovation through a case study of a workshop which I co-created some 10 years ago, which is called Design Thinking for Sustainable Change. We'll begin with a context. We'll look at the primary challenges we faced. We'll end for transferability, so that other schools can adopt in their own way the approach that we put into place. And we'll be finally concluding with perspectives for the future. Now, as an introduction, we decided to look at management as a critical influencer through two key questions. The first one being, what role do management students today play in contributing towards envisioning innovative ways for the management school sustainability mission? And the second question is, how can management educators more deeply involve students in actively contributing to their school's sustainability mission? Now we start with our framework, our guiding framework, which is Principles of Responsible Management Education. It is a UN sponsored initiative like Global Compact. It was created in 2007 with a mission to transform management education, research, and thought education leadership globally. It is, it was, as I said, it was developed in 2017 by an international task force of deans, heads of institutions, official representatives of leading business schools and academic institutions. It is basically based on 6 principles of management education and creating awareness about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, 17 Sustainable Development Goals. We are looking at, we're particularly interested in Prime's dedication to sustainability. This seems to be, we'll begin with a paradox that when we refer to the Brundtland Report in 1987, we must collectively strive for development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Talk about paradox, because while sustainability is future generation oriented, students themselves have been little involved in sustainability decision making in the management education system. The Prime in just last year addressed this paradox by, in a very active way, by launching Prime Global Students, PGS, with the belief that accompanying a global mindset change, which we just talked about previously in the opening, the keynote speak of this session, changing mindsets is vital. We can't change mindsets without the support of youth action, not youth talk, but youth action in supportive of the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the Prime Global Students is a network that is made by students and for students, and it operates within the Prime Global community in the aim of empowering and connecting student sustainable development friendly organizations across the world. Let's look at a model that captures Tim Brown's famous model for design thinking, where we find sustainable innovation at the very heart of 3 pillars, one of which is people, meaning that you cannot innovate without paying attention to what is desirable for the very users. The second of which it can be called, we can look at technology, and with the idea that if technology cannot support our idea, it won't happen. It won't be feasible. And it has to, we have to take into consideration the existing technology. Finally, the third pillar is business. It has to be our innovation, our idea to implement has to be viable, meaning that the organization can really implement it. Now, operating alongside of these 3 pillars, or nourishing them rather, are 3 main ideas, is that innovation must be based on empathy, must be very deeply tuned into the users, the people who are going to be implementing the idea. It has to be emotion sensitive, meaning that it has to be tap into the needs, the very needs of the users, their frustrations, their emotions. It has to also be rational. It has to be process oriented. And finally, it has to give way to creativity, feature or function innovation. And so again, in the heart of all this, we find that innovation in terms of sustainability must be ideal for the planet, must be durable, must be responsible. And this is what design thinking is. Another one of our adaptations of Tim Brown's model for design thinking features the 5 different stages of design thinking. The first one being empathizing, the second one being defining, followed by ideating, next prototyping, and next testing. So the first stage is one that looks at comprehension, focuses on the comprehension. You really have to know your stakeholders and empathize with their needs and unexpressed needs. So making those needs visible. Finally, we have, or following that, we have the definition phase. We redefine the problem by asking why. Next, we get into the ideation phase. We allow crazy ideas to come up with innovative ideas. And then we pass on to the prototyping phase. And we materialize the ideas and we dare to even fail. Again, we hear the idea that failing is necessary to advance, to quickly find relevant solutions. And we end up with the testing phase where we experiment solutions. And then as you see with the play of the arrows above and below, that there are iteration, constant iteration between all these phases. We have to go back to the previous stage to check. And so this is how we go through the design thinking process, and we end up with the presentation of the solutions to make sure that the solutions appear really desirable for most of the users. Now, we implemented this design thinking approach in the Sustainable Change Art and Workshop. And now we see the picture of this. You can see a group of students. These are the students this year. So despite the COVID, we were able to go to a farm and we were able to connect with a farmer. We have on the very forefront of our picture, we have the farmer that we visit. It's a woman, one of the rare women farmers, who is holding her newborn calf. The calf was about 7 hours old when we passed by, and the students were able to name the calf. They named the calf, by the way, Stan, because in Nancy there's a famous Place Stanislas, a UNESCO famous square. And here we are as a group. So maybe a little connection as to what is happening also in your great conference, dating graduates back to the village. In a way, we were also bringing students from around the world to a very local farm, meeting very genuine people who lived in a world that students are very far from. And this was part of our plan, to have them look at farming in a different way as an enterprise. So the context is this workshop, which is run at ICN Business School, which was one of the co-founders of ARTEM, a consortium of 3 schools, connecting art from the art and design school, technology through the École des Mines and Engineer School, and management with ICN. And so these 3 schools are situated next to one another in the heart of the beautiful city of Nancy. The aim of ARTEM is to connect and distinguish people, be they artists, engineers, or managers and fields of activity, disciplines, art, science, and technology management, as well as knowledge, how to create, design, produce, develop, negotiate, and manage to educate new generations of leaders and creators, enforcing transdisciplinary knowledge. The second aspect of our context is who are the students? Well, the students are from 3 ARTEM schools who are in their master year 2. We have about 30 students every year who take part in this workshop, which lasts 90 hours in class. It takes place in class, and even despite the hype, this pandemic, we did have in-class sessions over 27 weeks and a good part of the school year, so 7.5 months. The students work in multicultural teams on joint projects to enrich their practices from a multi-dimensional point of view. Now, the students this year were represented 8 different nationalities, by the way. And this year also, exceptionally, we did not have Indian students. So that means that all the students spoke English in the workshop as a second language. This workshop is around creating awareness about sustainable development goals. And this is part of our school strategy. Our current partner is the Chamber of Agriculture, so as a prime partner maybe for a business school in the Vosges County, a very rural county in eastern France. The current issue that the Chamber of Agriculture has mandated to our workshop is how to address agri-bashing. Agri-bashing, which is denigrating the very mode of production, which is agriculture. And it's a phenomenon which is worldwide. The primary challenges we faced are grouped again around the sustainable development model, and they are desirability, feasibility, and viability. And let's look a little bit closer at what that means in terms of our workshop. So we were interested in taking the students, creating this really close encounter between our students and the farmers through the Chamber of Agriculture. And why were these all challenges? Well, the first one, desirability. What was particularly a challenge for us was encouraging the students to put aside their personal biases when interpreting information and communicating with members of their own group. The challenge was heightened when all the students were using English as a second language, as the students, foreign students, rely on French students to express what they think, because of course the French students are speaking with the farmers in French. The big understanding is the big challenge is that they express what the farmers really said and not what the students think the farmers said. And so, of course, this is really encouraging the students to get into the shoes of the farmers. The second point.
Krista. Hi, yes. Krista. Yes. You know, the job of the chair is to be the bad guy. That's why they put there. So I just...
Okay. How many minutes do I have left?
You got a minute or so, let's say.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so these are the challenges we faced, that the students really are able to put themselves in the farmer's shoes when they come around with a solution. Now, the tips for transferability on the last 2 slides here is that human-centered approaches to innovation require really deep listening. Students today do not take notes. So we would encourage any teachers to encourage the students to reformulate in real time what they have heard, to have everyone remember what was said and vital to be able to solve the problem collectively. Students become change agents when they really help their stakeholders understand through asking these whys that the activities the farmers practice are really closely related to SDGs. We found that students offer through the design thinking process real added value at a low cost, meaning that sustainable and innovative solutions are possible for existing practices with resources at hand. And finally, we'll end with conclusions and perspective for the future. Our research is experimental at the present situation, and it's explorative. Future research could focus more on the students' perspectives by using reflective journals. Business schools indeed serve the communities by bringing together teachers, students, and stakeholders to address complex urgent problems. I'll end with a quote from Chandrika Parmar, who is Prime India Chapter Chair, management educators play a critical role as they re-examine curriculum as a means to create a mindset where the values of sustainability are an embedded lived way of life. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Krista. That was very insightful with a lot of data over here and a lot of thoughts for students to look into now. I'm going to pass it on next to Ravi and let him go ahead and take over from me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Dr. Chandra, and thanks, Dr. Finstad-Milion. It's a hard act to follow both of your wise words and insights. So I'll keep it super light. So I'm not going to give you, any heavy lifting, heavy topics. So it's super light. So let me take a moment to just introduce myself. More of a common interview than what you heard at the beginning. So I lived in India for about 27 years. So I'm I've been in the US for about 9 years now. So like many of you who were in the auditorium, I had the same dreams, I had the same goals. And I'll tell you what got me to pursue an MBA. And I'll tell you, probably what an MBA did in terms of my overall thinking. And perhaps, you can take, and that might prompt a few questions, which I'm very happy to, answer. So I did my engineering like most of us do in India. And I went to a good engineering college in North India. And I was really curious, one of the things that actually took me to the engineering college was growing up, I was always curious about how does something work. And that curiosity, I thought, is best fed at an engineering school. So I went there, I did industrial engineering. And the beauty about being an industrial engineer is you're not really specific about a particular topic, but you have a broad base of knowledge when you graduate after 4 years. So, you would probably understand if you walk into a manufacturing company, be it an automobile company, or be it a pharmaceutical company, or be it a bottling company, different ecosystems. When you walk in, probably the learnings that you've gained as an engineering student for 4 years, they help you understand, oh, this is how this works, or this is why this works in this way. So that curiosity kind of, the seed of curiosity, if you will, was planted in my 4 years of undergrad. But a few things had happened. So I graduated in 2007, I think 08 and 09. So my first job was at Tata Motors, and Dr. Finstad-Milion, Dr. Bouree, and Miss Memon. If you now that you are in India, you probably know Tata Motors, but otherwise, Tata Motors is India's largest automobile manufacturer. It's been around since 1945 or 46, and the same year actually in 2008, 2009, Tata Motors had bought Jaguar and Land Rover. So with all of this history, one thing that I couldn't understand inside the manufacturing shop floor in our Lucknow plant, and I've really fond memories of Jaipuria in Lucknow, because I passed by the campus pretty much every day to work. So anyways, going back to 08 or 09, I was curious, but I couldn't really understand why a company that was as successful as a Tata Motors had to shut down its factory during recession, or or why did they have to adjust the compensation, or why were they struggling? I was like, you're making money every year, so why can't you save up for a rainy day, and why can't you support your employees or manage through? So as you can imagine, I didn't really have a strong sense of how an income statement works. I didn't have a strong sense of how a balance sheet works, despite the fact that Tata Motors had been in existence for almost 65 years by then, or 70 years. I was clueless about why an industry leader still has to not quite succumb, but to bear the brunt of a recession. So that was one question that I didn't know an answer for. The second thing, growing up as an Indian kid, and every year the US dollar obviously appreciates, right? And then We're like, oh my God, this is expensive. That is expensive. And I had no clue how macroeconomics works. And I was always curious, why can't the rupee appreciate? Why is that always the dollar appreciates, and why do we have to adjust to the dollar? The third thing was mostly around how do you think about growth, or how do you grow your business? What are the kind of levers you have to run a business? So these are perhaps three indicative things that prompted the curiosity, and thankfully I had a lot of good friends who'd already been to business school right out of their undergrad. I could pick their brains, but there was still a lot of things that I wanted to go figure out on my own. Reading and learning financial statements didn't do it for me. So I decided, okay, let me come to the US. After I came to the US, actually, I was very lucky to get a lot of good business exposure. I was a part of Tata Administrative Service after Tata Motors. So for the other panelists, TAS is a leadership program of the Tata Group where we get rotational stints across different Tata Group companies. So from Tata Motors, I had an opportunity to go work for Tata Steel, which is another a flagship company of the Tata Group. And then I worked for a lifestyles product company called Titan, and then went to Africa, worked on an agro business for Tata Chemicals. Then I came back to India, worked for the chairman's office where we set up aerospace and defense for the Tata Group. But anyways, long story short, so I came to the US. And I spent 2 fabulous years, as you all are doing. I really envy each one of you who is participating live from the auditorium. This probably is one of the best phases of your life where you have an amazing set of friends, and then you have a support system that is enabled by a fantastic leader like, leader that you have in Dr. Prabhat Pankaj there. But anyways, so I do miss the 2 years that I was in business school. So what did I learn in business school? I was really curious about finance. How does finance work, and how do you connect finance to the overall growth of a business? So these are fairly tactical things, but how do you read income statements? How do you think about evaluating companies? And why does all of this even matter? So which kind of leads us to the topic of macroeconomics. So how do you connect, currencies? How do you connect oil and gas prices? And how does it trickle down to have an impact on you and I as individuals in different parts of the world? So, these were two or three things that I really, enjoyed about business school. But one of the things that I'd want to leave you with is, and I'll probably come back and I'd love to hear all the other panelists go and we can come back. But one of the things that I do want to instill in your young brains is that a management degree doesn't lead you to a silo. It just opens floodgates of opportunities. So today, if you're equipped in management, you can take this skill and apply it in different industries. And when I speak about industries, I'm not just limiting it to, say, FMCG. I'm not just limiting it to, say, manufacturing or the different industries or technology. I'm also saying, hey, at some point in time, you're tired. You're like, no, I'm done. I'm done with these spreadsheets. I'm done with building strategies. You can completely pivot and perhaps still use your business education to go work for the government. You can probably go work for the World Bank, or even in India, you can work for a non-profit. So in a sense, my experience is the education that you get, the network that you build during your 2 years of business school just doesn't lead you to the next job. It equips you with a career-long possibility of options, and which is what I'm really delighted about. And I probably said last thing, but this is truly the last thing. So I've also realized that what management does is, if once you are successful, you can make your family successful, and and the success keeps growing to communities, to countries, and to the world as such. So I'm not I'm not suggesting that everything that we do has a global impact, but you are getting the exposure, you're getting the basics to figure out how the world works and how the world operates. And the sky's the limit for you. And you've seen a very good presentation of what happens in a fantastic business school in Europe. And as you mature and as you learn more about yourself, more than anything else, say 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you're like, you know what, this is who I want to be. And at that point, again, the world's your oyster for you to go pursue other opportunities, which will help you get to the destinations that you think will keep you most happy and successful. But happy to come back again, but I'm really excited to listen to the views of the other panelists. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ravi. So, I'm going to change a little bit of the sequencing right now, and Prashasti, I'll let you go next. So I hope I did not butcher your name.
Thank you, Dr. Chandra, and truly inspiring to be here. I'm absolutely delighted to see, the students live at the auditorium. It's working at Coursera gives us an opportunity to visit campuses and interact with students. So I absolutely love the interactions. And my co-panelists have already put a very beautiful context for me to carry on from, and I'll borrow some ideas from there and talk a little bit more. But before that, I want to do a show of hands with the audience. How many engineers sitting in the audience now at a business school? Can we have a show of hands, please? See, engineers are everywhere. And especially they dominate the business schools. Great. Mea culpa, I'm included. And how many of us are baffled by the technological transformations getting out of hand before we pass out of the management school? A show of hands again, please. Oh, this audience seems to be very tech savvy. No, there are few opening up. No negative marking. I can assure Dr. Pankaj is not going to hold you responsible for a show of hands. I am included here. So please feel free to let me know if technology advancement baffles you as future business managers. I'm sure it does. Great. So what I wanted to establish is that engineers are known to be, so to say, the tinkerers, the ones who are innovators. But at the end of the day, the execution of that technology lies in the hands of the business managers. What you're going to go out and achieve tomorrow when you get out of the business school is you will be responsible for digital transformation decisions that your startup business, if you have entrepreneurial ambitions, or a corporate in which you become a business manager, or even if you want to do some social impact work and have to analyze what is the economic impact of your decisions and how you can enable it with technology, all this is going to be in your hands. So you're going to be the true blue executioners of the change that we are trying to drive across businesses. So there's a huge opportunity, possibility, and responsibility that's going to go on your shoulders. Dr. Chandra put a very beautiful context to business education. He said, it's a personality development program in a way, where your attitude, your problem-solving skills, your understanding of the larger macro economics comes into play. So the Jaipuria school is equipping you with all that information so that you can take better decisions tomorrow. Then Dr. Krista talked about design thinking. I'll give you a statistic. At Coursera, we ran a job skills survey globally, and we found out that the fastest growing digital skill is product design. And it's a two-word term, but product design is huge, right? It encompasses design thinking, it encompasses user experience, it encompasses communication. It's a huge spectrum of activity, which not one person can achieve, but a team can achieve together. So there has to be a visionary, the tinkerer, the implementer, the entire assembly line to be able to do this. And one important skill that comes whenever we talk about teamwork is communication. And guess what? the fastest growing soft skill globally is communication. We live in the age of communication technology. We need to articulate ourselves in virtual environments. I'm sitting right now on a Zoom panel with so many people around the world. So I need to learn to communicate digitally also. And I also need to learn how to learn digitally, because not every time I will have access to a classroom and a personalized mentor. So at Coursera, we've made some learnings with about 9.5 crore learners who learn on the Coursera platform. Today, about 1.5 crore learners are coming from India. We work with about 1,100 campuses, and there are so many learnings that we have made that a large spectrum of managers want to learn Python. Because, you know, data is gold today. We need to make our decisions which are data-driven. And Python just equips us better to interpret and analyze the data that we're gathering from our businesses today. I personally have started to learn artificial intelligence, on the Coursera platform. And what I've realized is, why is it important for me? Because all the technologies that are coming in today have started to get very automated. Machine learning is percolating in everything we do. How I interact on an e-marketplace, Amazon, how I choose what I want to learn, or how I want to design my career. All these decisions are coming from my internet searches, which are actually feeding into machine learning algorithms. Funnily, I was reading an article in Business World a couple of months ago where there was information about Alexa. And guess what? What is the largest searched phrase on Alexa in India? Can anybody make a guess? How Bollywood songs is the largest, but the second is, what should I do today? This is really funny that, you know, we are going to a bot and asking, what should I do today? And that opens up a huge plethora of opportunity. Imagine if I'm a food startup. I would suggest, why don't you order a breakfast, right? If I'm Coursera, I would say, what would you like to learn today? And there are so many options that come in. But to think about the consumer and build it back into the technology is the skill that you're learning at Jaipuria today. I think this environment is all about how you progress. I mean, there are 4 macro trends that shape globalization today, and business is at the core of it. There's globalization. We are talking about local businesses. We're no longer saying it's global and it's local. We are saying local, which means if I'm going to start micro business in my particular area, which could be as simple as a cloud kitchen, I'm making a local impact. But it all feeds into a global system, which is a global impact, which is about transformation of cloud kitchens for tomorrow. Business and technology hybridization. Earlier, we used to have a lot of manual processes, manual design. Now we are having tools that help us do that, right? Digital and blended learning. At Coursera, we realize how these university partners we work with have beautifully blended classroom conceptual learning with industry academia related contextual learning via the Coursera platform. How are students earning job credentials via the Coursera platform, right? So while Dr. Pankaj teaches beautiful concepts in the class and business management becomes the core of my learning, but the application piece I can go and learn on Coursera anytime. I can do a guided project on how to do data visualization using Tableau. So this is another impact that is coming into our lives. Then we are talking, if I specifically talk about education, we are now looking at a 60-year curriculum, which means right from the time when I start my learning at the alma mater until I reach, scale my career ladder, how can I keep revisiting my alma mater to get more information, more learning, or I can keep stacking credentials in new age technologies via my alma mater. So it's a lifelong association that comes into play. And the core of the curriculum and the technology that is coming in, or the macro growth factors that are coming in, there's always a catch-up game, right? When I enter my institution in 2021, I need to be ready for 2023. So there's always this catch-up game, which means I need to be open to blend a lot of ideas into my everyday life, tinker a little bit with what's happening, and see what I want to do in the future. In Coursera, we introduced something called the Career Academy way of learning, which simply means I say I want to be for example, a data engineer, or I want to be a fintech specialist. So there, you will kind of throw up, the algorithms will throw up the best courses that lead you to that particular career path. And therefore, I can upskill myself to my ambition pretty quickly following that path. And it also, assesses my level and tells me, okay, this is what I need to learn. This is the pace at which I want to learn. So should I do a foundation program? Should I do an advanced program? Is not something for me to figure out. The machine learning algorithms behind it, which are kind of programmed by pedagogists of the highest order, have fed that into the system. So it's automatic. This is digitalization. So the business managers at Coursera are thinking, how do we input the data insights we learn from how our learners are learning and make our algorithms better, right? This is a business decision, which is coming in the play of education. So it's an unbounded playground for all of you. Make the best use of the time here and just enjoy the ride. And I wish you all very, very good success for your future. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Prashasti. I know you have to go right now, but if there is a burning desire question for Prashasti, let's have that thing right now, because she will be leaving us after, if there is any specific question. Mary, can you check it?
Actually, the question for Dr. Krista, but she answered.
Okay, good.
Students from auditorium, do you have any questions, quick questions? Can you please? Or in live also? Some of the students are in live.
But only ask for Prashasti right now. We'll come back to the rest of
yes. Yes, only for Prashasti. Yeah.
So in classrooms, we say no question is either it went all up or all clear. It could be either way, but I hope it's
let's go with the positive.
It was very good. It was very good and very fast paced also. I like that part too. You covered a lot of things in there. So, but thank you very much. I know you have to leave now. You have to go for another meeting. I really appreciate it. So
thank you for your time today. Pleasure being here.
Thank you.
Amy, I'm going to pass it on to you now. So it's all yours.
Sure. Thank you very much. And it's been great to have these three presenters in front of me, because they brought up a lot of interesting things that I'll touch on a bit here. So I come from AACSB. There's some feedback.
There's a question.
Can you mute the auditorium, please?
Okay, great. Thank you. Is that visible to everyone, my slides?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So as I mentioned, we're here to talk about management education as an influencer. And one of the aspects that we're really dealing with at AACSB is, as an organization that represents management education, how we can collectively work together to make a positive impact on society. So AACSB International was started over 100 years ago, and started by some of the marquee brands that you know, Harvard, Stanford, Wharton. And the idea behind at that time was a lot of the need for management education to move into the academy, to be much more scientific. And over the years, AACSB has been part of that evolution, in addition to many other evolutions along the way, because we represent the largest group of business schools in the world, and we connect the idea is that we connect educators, learners, and businesses to create the next generation of great leaders. Well, what that means over the years has been quite different, right? We're now looking at leaders who can, this is an article that came out this week, so I thought it was prescient. So everyone wants us to, this is in the KIN Asia, and it's specifically speaking about the demographics in India. So everyone wants a sustainability leader, and no one knows where to find them. Well, the article points to 3 key ideas that I think would be important for business schools to take note of. Obviously, there's demand for leaders who can connect the dots and lead strategy. There's also demand for middle managers to carve out this space within their organizations through upskilling. So you just heard about Coursera and the opportunities to upskill. But there's also an opportunity here because, and even as Krista was mentioning, sustainability is an emerging area with a broad range of skill sets required. Not all of these are well defined. It's really up to business schools and they have been for quite some time to try to build the set of skills that are required for the sustainability leader and help businesses in developing those managers in that process. So this is a fresh article, but it's one that we've been paying attention to at AACSB for a long time. In 2020, we came out with the positive societal impact of business schools, recognizing that business schools have a mission to positively influence society, and they are empowered to define objectives and strategies that align the communities they serve. So really looking at not just business school in terms of the curriculum, in terms of the jobs you get afterward, in terms of the, as Ashish mentioned earlier, the money you will make at the end of it, but really having business schools look at the entire ecosystem that they operate in and recognize their value in that ecosystem. So this is the ecosystem, and it is about talent empowerment, absolutely. But this idea of lifelong learning is so important to this ecosystem of talent empowerment. And business schools have a responsibility to convene and to bring together organizations and governments and others to really improve the performance of the organization, whether it be an NGO, whether it be a for-profit enterprise, and in that consider, as Krista was mentioning, the human-centered piece of it. Well, we look at it as, you can kind of take it even more macro, looking at it from the societal, the collective. We have a responsibility both in being managers and in the businesses that we run to enhance societal well-being overall for economic, environmental, and social aspects. So business schools have a really important role to play in all of this, and they are not alone. They're actually often the connectors and conveners to bring together these different viewpoints for innovation and advancement. So as a business school student, you can certainly look at your school and say, you know, this is not just management education. I'm not just going to be a manager. I'm going to be a citizen of this world. And this education that I'm getting is one that prepare me to be a citizen of this world who can affect outcomes that positively impact society. So how do business schools do this? As I mentioned, so they connect business, community, government to deliver results, but also through this connection by addressing and solving the real wicked problems. And that's not just, wicked problems don't exist in business only, they exist in a variety. Dr. Ashish works in healthcare. There are wicked problems in healthcare, and it takes management theories and ideas to solve those problems, but not alone. There's a need to be integrative. And also we look at developing purpose-driven leaders. So, you know, you shouldn't think of when you graduate, you know, as we mentioned, the MBA has been criticized quite often for producing sort of profit maximizing, you know, managers. But the truth is and the evolution that we've come to is really about helping you define your purpose. And that's what Ravi was talking about, is what is your purpose and where are you headed and how do you achieve your goals? And that's important, that we have people who are purpose-driven to tackle these tough challenges. We also create these hubs of lifelong learning. So one of the things about business, and Coursera is a product of business in many ways, of business schools in many ways, is they're creating these hubs of lifelong learning where you check in periodically. Right now we're in a world where you may live to be 100 years old. You're not going to do education, work, retirement. That model is completely gone. You are going to do some education, you're going to do some reskilling, you're going to do some working, then you're going to come back and you're going to reinvent yourself through education. You are going to be a lifelong learner. That's the world we live in today. The half-life of skills is decreasing. So schools have a responsibility to create these hubs, and an opportunity to create these hubs to elevate economies and promote prosperity. But also, business education is also a key driver of innovation across through the work that they do, working with startups, working with the engineering schools at their campuses, and helping and doing research in various areas, creating the case as Harvard did so many years ago to help inspire and innovate. And that is what business schools are involved in. Your school, Jaipuria, I know is doing all of these things in their specific way. So AACSB is also known as an accreditor. So what is and Jaipuria is a school that is going through this accreditation process. So what is it that we expect a school to do in this process, especially around societal impact? This is a new evolution in the standards. And it's an evolution I've had the opportunity to see, being in Geneva in 2007 to co-convene the PRME. The writing was on the wall. The UN was asking us to step up as an organization. And it took until the 2020 standards specifically to call it out for what it is, but that's part of the evolution of the standards. But we have within it a guiding principle that schools believe that they have an important role to play for society. We carry that through to strategic planning, the curriculum, the scholarship that the school produces, and all of their engagement activities. And it's this connection, this link, as you can see in the graphic above, that is so essential to being able to make that change, that collective change across all business education. That's what AACSB does. We have more than 900 schools that are accredited, and all of the well-recognized schools that you could think of are there among this peer set of schools, all doing this work collectively. So this is an example of how we collect and document. So one of the things that the PRME requires and AACSB requires is that you report on what you're doing. And so we've introduced a table and we've aligned it with the SDGs so that, because it's the most globally recognized sort of framework for advancing societal impact, but it helps schools tell their story across the various activities in which they do. I had the pleasure of working with Jaipuria on thinking through some of this in my recent visit to the school. And so I think that it's an enlightening process for schools, and it will impact you as a student in how cohesively the school brings together its resources to help you develop these skills and your school to achieve this kind of impact. So we have a model for societal impact, which this is an example. This is an example of Goa Institute of Management, another autonomous school regulated by AICTE, based in the state of Goa. And what AACSB looks at, and you kind of think about it as, and what your school will be doing is defining a focus area. So GIM's goal is to contribute to the society in the context of Goa. So we talked about local. This is a local impact expectation that this school has, and they created this social responsibility in action. It's a 4-credit course, and this is the activity. This is the action that the school is doing. And what is the output? They're creating, part of this curriculum is these projects which engage partner organizations such as banks and NGOs. So that's the output. The project is the output. The project is not yet the impact. It's the outcome, how those projects are used. So 300 plus farmers got soil cards to improve harvest outcomes. 40 women artisans learned how to improve and design quality and consistency of their products. And over 100 children who are dropouts and differently abled were able to become more comfortable with speaking, doing math, and expressing themselves. These were projects that students engaged in. They engaged with a variety of industries and governmental organizations in the state of Goa to recognize what these major problems were, and on an annual basis, or every 5 years, they might have an impact similar to this, these 3 items that I've mentioned. But what is really important is the transformation over time. We have to take a long view with sustainability. And over time, the expectation is that graduate awareness and skills help build a more inclusive society. Krista talked about this in her conversation, was how do you design with that person, with those who you're working with, the users, how do you design things for them? And that's an extremely important part of this whole process. And of course, overall, if every business school is working along similar lines, and the transformation will be this economic empowerment. And the school will have an impact on reducing the income inequality in the state. So that's how we look at societal impact. It can be many things that schools are doing, but the idea that resource focus, adding resources, putting it to action will create transformation over time, and schools will start to track this and think about this as they're designing their curriculum for you as a student. So just before I'll leave us here. I won't go too much more, but this is just some idea starters for you as a student. As you start to think about what's your journey in this space, which life experiences have you had that are have had the most impact on you? What kind of world do you want to live in? I want to live in a world where there is no more blank, right? 5 years from now, I'd like to change how. At the end of my career, I want people to remember my impact on. And what kind of education or experience do you need to support those goals? So in the Coursera example, they have a system now where you can kind of maybe answer some of these questions and understand what kind of educational experience you need. But I can also tell you, I know your school is also asking you those same questions and designing educational experiences so that you can achieve your goals. So as you start to think about your future, these are just some ideas for you to take with you. And with that, I'll just leave it.
Thank you very much, Amy. That was fantastic. A lot of food for thought over here. And some assignment for students. So our typical faculty member over there. So he given. So now we'll go to our last speaker for this panel is Kristina, who will be joining us bright and early from the Netherlands. So it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. Hello. I'm Kristina Bouree. I'm joining you from the Netherlands, and here is 6:43. A bit early time for me, to be honest. So I had to be very quiet when I was coming to my office, not to wake up my family members. I hope for you it's more comfortable time and you are more awake than me. And I see here one of the screens with a group of students. I'm wondering, is it students took a photo and put there and they are somewhere on the party, or it's a real student sitting there? If it's real students, maybe you could do something. Maybe you could put your hands. Hey! I don't see any movement. So, but I hope these are real people. Okay, great. Then thanks a lot for having time to invite me. I'm working in the Netherlands, in the Netherlands Education Group. It's an educational institution where we organize study programs on different topics of management. And what we also do, we also host startups who want to come to the Netherlands to develop themselves. And we offer internships to international students, and we offer all kinds of other study programs in the Netherlands for international students who want to come here. And I would like to tell you some few things about issues that probably bothers many students, because I am often being asked different questions by students about different aspects about education. And do you know what is the most popular questions that I'm being asked to? Probably you as students also wonder about it. And the most popular question is, oh, how could I find a job in the Netherlands? And that's what I would like to tell you a bit about, because it also has to do with management education, with education that you are receiving, how you're going to use it in future for your career promotion, for finding a job in other country. And particularly in my case, I would tell you about the Netherlands. There are different ways to come to the Netherlands legally. Some of the ways, for example, marriage, some people consider it the most easy and the most difficult way at the same time. So if you marry someone, of course, you can easily move, but probably not applicable to everyone. Another option, for example, which is particularly popular now, to come as a refugee, but also not applicable to everyone and not that easy. And another option that came a few years ago, it's a startup visa. So if you have an idea of a startup and you want to come to the Netherlands to start a startup, based on that, you can apply for a startup visa and come to the Netherlands to work on your startup. And if your startup goes well, then you can stay here longer to work on it further. And then another option is to find a job. And finding a job works in the following way, that if you're a citizen of the Netherlands or of a country of European Union, then it's very easy for you to find a job in the Netherlands. You can come and you can do any job. You can work in a restaurant, you can work in a shop, you can work in a company, you can work as a professor at university. So you can apply for any job if you are EU citizen. But at the same time, if you are not an EU citizen and you want to come to the Netherlands to work, then the opportunities are quite limited for you. You can only apply for jobs that are providing so-called highly skilled migrant visa. And what is that? Some group of companies, and in the Netherlands there are a bit more than 2,000 companies, they're registered by Migration Office as providers of highly skilled migrant visa. And that means that they can sponsor your visa. So that means that if you come from abroad to work in the Netherlands, you can only apply for jobs in those companies. And seeing that applying for you for a highly skilled migrant visa, it requires a lot of extra work from a company. Companies not always are eager to do it. That's why they only invite you if you are really, really good professional. What does it mean on practice? It means that the company is mostly interested in foreign professionals if they have some background, some skills that are very difficult to find in the Netherlands. So if you did some nice studies like communication or sociology, most probably it would be nearly impossible for you from abroad to find a job in the Netherlands, because companies have so many specialists in communication, sociology, marketing in the Netherlands. Then they would be easier to invite someone local than invite someone from abroad. So if you study things like law, for example, yeah, nothing wrong with law. I studied myself, law is my first education, so nothing wrong with that. But if you want to find a job in the Netherlands, then it's going to be pretty difficult. But what makes it easy to find a job in the Netherlands? If you have some good technical education and experience. If you're an engineer, and of course now it's a boom of ITers. So if you study in IT, if you're a very good programmer, you can make apps, then it would be really, really easy for you to find a job. And let's talk about management education. So where it comes to the place, because if you're on a junior position, if you're applying for a job in a junior position in the Netherlands or in most of other countries, then most probably an employer will look at your education, your skill set. So here are your hard skills very important. So with hard skills, you can apply for a job and get your junior position. But if you're applying for a bit higher position, senior positions, then hard skills are not enough anymore. Because when people hire a person for senior positions, they also hire a manager. They hire a person who mostly will be communicating with other people. And that's where soft skills are very important. So that's where this management education is very important. That's where it's important, very important how you communicate with other people. And that means that if you are hoping to apply for a high position in some big company for a senior position, you should work on your management skills. You should work on your soft skills. So you should develop your soft skill to be able to fit in a foreign company. And what we often have is that participants from abroad apply for some senior positions in the Netherlands and say, hey, I have so great experience abroad. I'm applying every day, but I cannot find a job. Why? And the issue is that when people conduct interview with you, they do not see you as a CV. They see you as a professional, a future colleague. They see you as a future partner whom they would see every day. So they want to be able to communicate with you. And the issue is that sometimes people who have not been abroad, who have not studied on management education programs, they are not able to demonstrate those set of soft skills that are looked by employers abroad. So if you want to succeed applying by a senior position abroad, that's where you should focus on, also on developing on your soft skills. And of course, it is very difficult to develop your soft skills not being abroad, not learning about other countries, about other cultures, because also nowadays in big companies, you're working with people from all other backgrounds. It's very important to fit in, to be culturally aware, to know about other cultures, about countries. That's why it's good before you're applying for those positions to get some experience or to study at some management education programs where they will teach you, or to travel yourself to get some experience to prepare yourself for that. And what I would like also to say, so if you are interested in, then think about it, start from a junior position maybe, apply, and then after that, develop your soft skills and apply further. And that was what I wanted to say about applying for jobs, but also what I wanted to say that, as I mentioned before, in the Netherlands, a few years ago, it started to be possible to come to the Netherlands to work on a startup visa. And we, in the Netherlands Education Group, we offer free, absolutely unpaid, so unpaid mentorship for startups. So if you have an idea of a startup that you would like to work further, you can contact us, you can contact me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Kristina Bouree, or you can Google our organization, the Netherlands Education Group, and you can contact us with an idea of your startup. And we would be happy to provide you free mentorship. That would be online mentorship. So a tutor will contact with you online. But if your project will be good, if it will be developed further, then it probably could be also satisfy the criteria for a startup visa if you're interested in. So that's why we're offering now this free startup mentorship opportunity. So if anyone is interested in, please contact us and let us know. Well, I hope I was not very boring this early morning, because as you could probably see also by my hair, it's a very early time for me. So I hope it made a little bit sense what I said. I see I'm at the end of my time. Then thank you very much. And if you have any question, just feel free to keep in touch, contact me, and I would be happy to keep in touch with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristina. Well, you are perfect. Don't worry about time. You're getting up. I'm getting ready to go to bed. It's midnight over here in Houston. For Ravi and I, it's midnight. So before we open it up for Q&A, I'm just going to summarize and say a few things about that students should keep in mind. Almost all the speakers talked about having a mindset training. Basically, management training will change your mindset. Go with that attitude. Look at the different types of scenarios. Be curious. Curiosity is actually good. Being curious is not a bad idea. Be curious, learn through it. Identify some scenarios. Now, I'll tell something about the conference itself. I can guarantee there will be a lot of people over here in the audience sitting that, what am I doing over here? Why am I sitting? I did not learn a single thing in this conference. Well, guess what? The moment you said that, I did not learn a single thing in this conference, you did. Because you learned something that if I was going to do a conference, I will not do it this way, or I would like to put something over here. You actually did learn something. even if you think you did not learn a single thing at any meeting you go to, any conference. And that's where the issue comes of lifelong learning, which the speakers said already. The letter on speakers, they all said that you need to be a lifelong learner. Just go to a conference, go for continuing education. That is lifelong learning. Of course, Kristina said something very apt right now, travel. Even though she was kind of throwing a carrot, come to Netherlands, but travel is important. That if you travel, you learn. No matter where you travel, even if you travel to a different state in the same country, you learn. Every place you learn something, because in India is rich of different cultures. So you learn always from those things, and international travel will give you an exposure. I can also guarantee you there are a bunch of people who are thinking they're judging us too. It's human nature. I should not let that bother me. That if I was more careful, that what are you thinking? And a lot of it is nonverbal communication. So you can say to, like Kristina was worried about being up too early in the morning. Ravi and I can say that, no, it's too late in the night. We may be looking sleepy. So, but we would never let that dictate our life over here, that how others are judging. And when you start doing that thing, it can hinder in your own growth. So you cannot change them. Don't worry about it. Be yourself. There were some questions from students, and I'm going to shut up over here and I'm going to let Mary run the show from now on. But I do appreciate this fantastic panel you assembled, and I appreciate all the panelists for their contributions. Thank you, Mary and Prabhat. It's all yours. Thanks, Prabhat.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, I see him. Good job. Shruva, I'm awake.
So, a couple of questions from students in from auditorium. So I would call Ritika Tiwari and Anushka. Can you please ask your questions?
Ritika, unmute first and then ask.
Good morning to all the panelists. So my question to you is that, as you have mentioned earlier, that the world is becoming tech-savvy and many of the new technologies will be introduced in the future. So how should we remain updated with all these tech things? Would you like to suggest us something on this?
I'll let the engineer take over here. Amy and Ravi, would you like to chime in?
Can you repeat the question? I wasn't able, it wasn't audible for me.
So the question was about, don't sit down, don't sit down yet, don't sit down. Okay, because the question was over something like, and you can correct me, that with all these consistently changing technologies, how much technology should they learn and what technology should they learn? Is that what you were asking? You're muted.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, I think Ravi is probably the best one to answer this, but perhaps that's not the right question to be asking, because the truth is, whatever technology you learn, it'll be obsolete soon. So you should learn how to learn is more important.
I don't think I can beat that answer. So, but Ritika, I think from my standpoint, you know, your management learnings and the core learning on how a business functions and how a business operates doesn't change. So I think it also completely depends on what kind of a career you foresee for yourself. So if you're really keen on technology, probably you should invest more time in understanding and developing an appreciation for what is that in technology that excites you. But if you're purely thinking from, oh, I'm going to be a manager and I'm going to be in business role, I wouldn't really think that technology can be as daunting as it is as we are made to believe, because I think the lens and the tools that you would use are perhaps evergreen. So, and if I fail to answer your question, always happy to connect offline and learn more about the question. But my emphasis would be, like Amy suggested, obviously, always be ready to learn. And if business is where you want to belong, then I wouldn't really think technology, should be top of your mind.
What I would like to add over here is that learn the technology that is relevant to you and your career. So I'll give you an example which may hopefully help you. A clinical information systems in a hospital is purely for clinicians, where the doctors, the nurses, the pharmacists, these are the clinicians who will be using a clinical information system. But an administrative information system will be used by the accounts payable, accounts receivable, the human resources office. Those are two different job descriptions. It's no use to explain, to teach clinical information systems to the hospital CEO who has zero knowledge and experience about how to take care of a patient. What does this particular medication do? So whatever the field that you're picking, make sure that the technology that you go for is in line with what you want. And like Amy said, the moment you learn one, there will be 10 more waiting for you. So there is always something new coming up. And just to age myself, let me give you an example of myself. I was giving a lecture and I was telling students that in a videotape, in a VHS tape, and a student stopped me in my class and said, "What is a VHS tape?" So let me put it this way, that's how fast the technology has changed. Do you know what a VHS tape is? I would appreciate if you all say yes, because if you say no, I will really age myself right now.
I was just about to ask you that question.
Okay, good thing you're not my student. I would have failed you. Next question.
Good morning, everyone. So I have a similar question, and I saw that it is already being answered in the chat box by Kristina ma'am. My question is that you were talking about being updated about the advanced technology, but many people, they find it hard to learn the new technology that comes, and they, because they are not able to understand easily, they lost interest. So what do you do so that you are updated always and you are so much informative about everything?
I don't know anything, so I'll let the others talk about it. So they know more than I do.
So Chris, give us an example of a technology, or just to help us understand the question a little better.
So what she's saying is that there's always something new coming, and then people have a hard time understanding specific technologies. What should you do to learn that or get over that hurdle of learning? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So how do you, it's basically you need to unlearn the old stuff and just basically write a new software on top of it, learn a new thing. That's all. But at the same time, you should not quit. The moment you think that I'll quit, you failed. So will you be exceptionally good in it? Probably not. But would you know about it? Absolutely. Somebody had asked me once that who would I hire? A person who is an expert in a field or a jack of all trades? And I will pick a jack of all trades because I don't know what trade I will need in future. I cannot predict that part. And that's because that's one of the things when I was looking for a graduate assistant also. Somebody was a 4.0 and I hired a person who was 3.5 GPA. And that's pretty big difference. But I thought that the person had much more to contribute. They were willing to learn. Whereas the 4.0, they knew how to do it, and that's the only way they knew how to do it. If it was anything different from that, They were not going to go for it. So I always go for somebody who is eager to learn. They have to be more extrovert than introvert, more outgoing, make friends easily. That's the kind of person I would like to go for. But I'll let the other panelists chime in and give their perspectives.
So if I may, you mentioned something about interest, right? If it becomes difficult, it's not of interest. There are two parts to that. Is it something that you can apply? Or do you have an idea of how it is applied? The application of your learning is actually oftentimes where, if you're not able to apply it, if you're not put in situations where you can apply your learning, then it becomes more difficult and it's hard to stay interested in something like that. But if your purpose, and we've talked about this, if you're purpose driven, if you have a clear purpose for why you're learning that, and you're able to apply it in your everyday life or apply it in achieving your goals, then it becomes something that is of interest. You identify with it and you make a habit for it. So not just doing for doing's sake, right? It's important that you're clear and be curious. If you're curious, you may stumble upon something of interest to you. Just because it's not of interest now, it might be later. So be curious, be purpose-driven, and in your learning. And Dr. Krista, do you have anything? I'm sure you have experience with these questions.
Absolutely. I was thinking, being curious, it's not good. It's not sufficient enough that you're curious in your head. You have to vocalize it. It sounds very basic, but it gets right down to who's taking the microphone, who's standing up, who's raising their hand, who's thinking something but not raising their hand. In terms of interactivity, we can see this in the auditorium, or who has the courage to ask a question. Some of the most basic questions, they're fundamental, they're critical, they hit the spot. And I think it's very important to be curious, open-minded to, non-judgmental of other people, non-judgmental of your own curiosity. Am I stupid to think this? Don't think that. It's probably, if it's preoccupying you, it's probably because it's a very good question you're asking yourself. And very good questions we ask ourselves are often ones that we share with a lot of other people. So it's a matter of vocalizing that curiosity, making it known to other people, because that's how you interact. We're getting back into the discussion. In the end, you're going to make an impression on people because they hear you, they see you, and you're not just a number. And you have ideas, and you're not afraid to voice them.
Kristina, you want to chime in?
Yeah, and I would also add that if you see some new technologies, watch out, because very often some new technologies come, some new technologies go, and the life now has so many new things happening that you cannot catch everything. So just focus on what you exactly need and learn that. But when you're learning that, be prepared that maybe tomorrow it will not be that relevant. So don't be upset if it happens. And don't try to get everything what you see, because other people do. Just focus on what's relevant to you. For example, a few years ago, Bitcoin was a big thing. And I thought, okay, I have a legal background, I have no idea what is a Bitcoin, but Bitcoin makes everyone rich, so I will buy Bitcoins. And I bought some Bitcoins 2 years ago, and it was a day when 2 days later, they just dropped. And immediately what I bought became less than half of it. I said, yeah, why did I do it? Something that I did not understand, because I thought it's such a big thing. Everybody talks about it, it should be something cool. But it was not something that I understood what is it. I still don't. So maybe it was something that I should not do anything with it. And the same now, there is this big thing, NFT. What is NFT? Some people think, oh, it's a big thing. People say, it's a bullshit, it's going to die tomorrow. So these are things that come and go, and you should only follow the things that you understand, that you like, that suit to you. and do not try to catch everything what you see because other people say that it's a cool thing. So follow true you. Thank you.
If I can just chime in, thinking another one of our learning that came out of our design thinking is that it's an observation that students are likely to propose a solution based on an idea they already know, so that there's not little innovation there. Innovation can only come out of really interacting with other people, getting into their heads. The ideas are in the others. The students also, one final, students also look for shortcuts. They have a problem, they look for a solution. And they think that's what being a manager or a leader is all about. And they often confuse speed and reactivity to efficiency. And it's usually the other way around. It's an iterative process. It's going back and forth, asking, did I, and even question your own assumptions constantly. So I think this is, and it's a lifelong learning process. It's not just a matter of, managers do a lot of that, things like that. They can be very expensive. Proposing a solution they already know, instead of really asking the clients, really deeply caring about the users. This is something that we should keep in mind our whole lives.
Well, I know there are a lot of curious students over there who want to ask questions, but we have to be cognizant of the other sessions going on too. So I'm going to just cut it off over here and let Mary go ahead and wrap up the session.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Before going with the formal vote of thanks, I would like to call Dr. Prabhat, sir, our director, to share some of the views.
We already exceeded 15 minutes, so I won't take much time. I'll just say thank you. Thanks to everyone. Thank Ashish for conducting this session so well. Thanks, Krista, for your wonderful deliberation and also suggestions to the students. Thanks, Amy, you have brought out all the essential ingredients of what a student should do and how they should shape up their career, and a lot of food for thought for the institutions. Thank you, Kristina. You've been very energetic, and it looked like that from a distance I can see that you look like more like an Indian. So students connected with you very well. Ravi, as usual, you have been really great. The final observation that I would like to make is that from hearing all of you together is the need of the hour is that, the institution, management institution particularly should focus on two aspects. One is creating a manager who is actually an impact maker. So, how you decide where you want to make impact is up to you. Your vision and mission is going to guide you, but you need to focus on impact. Without an impact, the education per se is not going to help. That's one takeaway. It's a very big takeaway for all of us. And the second is, I would like to add from my side is that we also need to talk about happiness and well-being, which we are doing at Jaipuria Institute of Management, because in post-pandemic world and for even otherwise, we are talking about well-being of the society, well-being of the students, the large number of students who are with the management education. But are we really focusing more on their mental health? Are we focusing more on how they're going to contribute to their own life and to the life of the near and dear which they have in their family? And also, lastly, how they are going to contribute to the society will depend upon how they keep themselves very, very fit in terms of physical, at the same time mental. So mental health is actually the core of the art. And given the fact that there is a lot of evidence, scientific evidence is coming up, and neuroscience is helping us in that, and a lot of other literature also coming up, talking about happiness intervention, which is going to help, which helps us in becoming a bit more happy and is guiding our life properly. So this is one endeavor that we are into. And I see that the education per se has been transformative all over the world. It has actually lifted millions of people above poverty line, and that's because of the education. But if you look at the management education per se, it has also created, not only lifted people from poverty line, but it has also given them a certain identity. People have actually done management, and they have created their own identity based on what they have done. out of this education. So it's very, very transformative. And the contribution of management education to the society and to the globe is going to grow bigger and bigger. And that's why management education, I believe, is going stronger and stronger, and incorporating the impact factor and making change as part of the curriculum and way of life is going to actually create a kind of management education in times to come, which is going to be the harbinger of change. If you're talking about the climate action or net zero, or maybe we are talking about any other solutions, tech-based solutions, innovations, everything is going to come out of the management education. So we are very, very dynamic in that sense, and it's going on the right direction. And agency like AACSB is doing a great job by incorporating this into management education. And there is a great deal of awareness that has actually already gone into, and the management education is now well poised to accept the fact and incorporate it in their management curricula, and the action at the grassroots is very important. It's not just about the students that are with us, but it's also about the faculty who are with us. So there's a large pool of research that is coming up from the faculty. Is a big contribution that the management education is actually making to the industrial world, to the business, to the society, to the government. Everybody is going to look up to. And the demand for management professionals from the government has never been so high as it is today. And especially I can vouch for Indian political leaders, political parties who are actually looking at management graduates to manage their affairs. So, great session, great session, and it would have really a pleasure to listen more and more from you people, but you have created a big impact on our mind. So it's going to lead us somewhere. Thank you so much.
I'm very happy and honored to provide the vote of thanks. Definitely it is a galaxy of the speakers, because from different countries, India, US, France, Moscow, and Netherlands. Some of the glimpses of the discussions are this: to sensitize the students regarding the importance of management education to be an influencer, the well-detailed explanation of design thinking and sustainable innovation, and how it helps to inculcate the role of the management students and the management educators, and the curiosity to learn around the world, the importance of the digital transformation of the management students. We couldn't avoid some of the terminologies like data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, Python, and data visualization. Very well explained that how these are all the learnings to support for management students to be as an influencer. This is a time to implement the actions and societal impacts for the management students, to open up the idea of startup visa, to work across the world and share the importance of the soft skill and technical skills to help the students to work in Netherlands. And finally, be curious and ready to learn continuously and consistently. So finally, it is a time to learn and relearn. Thank you very much for spending your valuable time and phenomenal discussion pouring of thoughtful ideas. From this note, I'm ending the session.